Welcome to Calling All Voices, brought to you by the Dementia Action Alliance and the Global Council on Alzheimer's Disease. My name is Karen Love, and I am the CEO of the Dementia Action Alliance. In this podcast, you will hear from people living with dementia from the Black and the LGBTQ+ communities. They'll share stories about how resilience and persistence can help people to continue to live meaningful lives, even with the diagnosis of dementia. And you'll hear participants discuss why it's important that we call all voices to share their experiences. Today's episode will feature discussion with Deborah Tan and Terrie Montgomery.
Hello, everyone. This is the Calling All Voices podcast, and I have the distinct pleasure of talking with Terrie Montgomery on today. And I am so thrilled that you are here. So how are you feeling today?
I feel fired up and ready to go.
Well, let's do that. Since you're fired up, I'm ready to go. We got a good team going here. So Terrie, let's just get right into conversation. Tell us about your journey with dementia. And I'll repeat this if necessary, but this is what I would love for the audience to know. When and how did you realize something had changed for you, Terrie?
Okay. I noticed, and this was back prior to 2015, it's when I officially received my diagnosis, but what led to it is because I couldn't remember passwords. I was beginning to be a pet rat in my home. I couldn't remember the instructions on this monthly report that I had to do. I had to ask the accountant how to do it when I had told him how to do it. So it was things like that. And then as far as I lost my driver's license at that time, I lost my passport. So those signals of things is what led me to the doctor.
Okay. And so Terrie, for you, like sometimes for the average person, may not have been a wake-up call because people lose things from time to time. So what was it about you that made you pivot because you recognized this was not me? What was going on?
Well, as my daughter had told me, Mom, like when they would come over, they was like, Mom, why you have all this stuff lined up? You haven't given anybody any of these presents that you're buying. I'm like, okay, I'll get to it. I didn't pay much attention to that. I had gotten turned around going to lunch. I was late coming back. And then the critical thing was when I got to a railroad crossing. And I got confused for a few moments because where I worked, there was a lot of railroads there. And they had a double where it's a set of tracks and a second set of tracks. And I was in the middle. And for a minute, I just sort of got confused. And that's when I went back to the doctor as a follow-up because he told me come back in 6 months. And I worked like 50, 60 hours because I loved what I did. I did a lot of community services and I worked a lot of hours. So I pretty much stayed at my job most of the time. And so that's what he thought was the problem, is that either it was hormonal, my thyroid, change of life, those things. But when I told him about the traffic incident, then he said, okay, let me do some tests. And that's what he did. And those tests came back, the CAT scan, the MRI, they didn't have a PEP. I didn't get one of those PET tests that they have in the one that's the neurological one that they do for you. That's like for 6 hours long of the evaluation of that one. And when the results came back, that's when I was told by the neurologist that I had, I was too young, he said, to have this, but you have early onset Alzheimer's.
Okay. And so when you were told that, when you were given that diagnosis, what did you know about Alzheimer's? What was your initial reaction? Were you in shock? Did you say, what is Alzheimer's? Tell me about that because that's impactful, Terrie. Let's talk about that a bit.
Well, my brother-in-law, my oldest brother-in-law on my husband's side, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I didn't really know what Alzheimer's was. I really didn't even know how to say it correctly. And so I had looked it up and I found the Alzheimer's Association so I can learn more about my brother-in-law, not knowing that within a couple of years later, I would be getting it too. So that was the irony of it all. So I only knew of some things that made it more clear as far as it being a memory issue and that it be decline and things like that. So I was trying to learn more for him so I can know how to communicate with him because he was one of my favorites.
Mhm.
And so, but ironically, I had to, I experienced it myself of being forgetful and things like that. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't have what he has, but that's what it turned out to be. But I learned as far as the support, and I was willing to do, once I retired, because that was my plan, I was going to donate that time and volunteer for that cause, but it didn't work out that way. Because shortly after I was diagnosed, that's when you normally are let go, or in my case, I didn't want to be in an embarrassing situation where I couldn't remember who I was talking to or suddenly get confused or go out at lunch. I didn't want it to be publicized that way. I wanted to get involved, learn a little bit more, find people that was like me, a support group. So I jumped in that right away, and that sort of helped me a lot.
Mhm. So it sounds like you wanted to, and I laud you for this, you wanted things to be on your terms.
Yeah, sort of. I like for once I had it, and I had to tell my employer. When the doctor, let me back up. When the doctor gave me my results, I shed a tear for a moment. And then after that, I powered back up and I told him, look, if I'm going to deteriorate in time, I'm following you along. But I says, I hope that I be one of those people that is still calm, close to my own personality. Because I always try to say something lighthearted for people when it's bad news. So I says, I always wanted to go on the Richard Simmons show. And I hope I be like Richard Simmons and that I have a gold, I forgot what they call them, the little skirt that goes around, tutu. Right. Yeah, I was hoping that I had some golden shoes and a purple tutu, and that I would think that I'm on the Richard Simmons show, and I'll tell everybody to come out of their room and we just do exercises. I said, that's how I would like to be that demise to that level. And he looked at me, he smiled a little bit like, okay, I can see you doing that. And then from there, of course, we all know there's no cure. We have medicine to slow it down. Get your affairs in order, live your life, and that was it. So it was no hope given. And it was, but what I found is as long as I stayed busy, I wouldn't spend time thinking about my illness.
Okay.
Because I had to learn what it was.
Yeah. Perfectly understandable. So I want to paint a broader picture, if you will, about that initial exchange between your doctor and yourself. Did I think I just heard you say that you weren't given any hope. Did I hear you correctly?
Right. There's no hope because you have a terminal illness. That's the words that was given to me, that I had early onset Alzheimer's. It's terminal. There is no cure.
Okay.
There are medicines to slow it down for you, but that's not a cure either. But at least it will help you get through it with the medications that we can give you for that. As far as how long you going to live, I had the impression that I probably would be dead within 4 to 7 years, 4 to 6 years, somewhere in there. I didn't think I would live. I'm in year number 7 right now, but I believe that I would be dead within those like 4, 5, 6 years, that I would have been really, really down by then.
So, okay, I hear you. I hear you loud and clearly. This is what I want to say as we think about and frame this conversation about how to advocate for yourself, because that's what this interview is all about, and how you're going to give us the best practices in your toolbox for how to advocate for yourself. But I want to talk about this because I think this is so important. When your doctor was sharing with you, did you feel a degree of sensitivity, compassion? Did they sit next to you? Did they give you a Kleenex? Did they hold your hand? Did they put their arms around you? That's what I want you to speak to.
When he came into the room, like for me to get my results, of course, the assistant had already taken my vitals. So I was sitting there waiting for him to come in. So when he walked into the door, I sort of knew it was something wrong, because when he walked in, he tried to smile and everything. And I'm like, yeah, it's something. So he sat down in a chair and he looked at me and he says, well, I have some news for you. It's not good. I'm so sorry. And that's when he delivered about that I had the early onset Alzheimer's, and I was 58. And he told me that, like I said, it wasn't like, oh, I feel sorry for you. He didn't do that. He just pretty much just made it clear that this is a disease that is terminal. This is a disease that we have no cure. This is a disease that it's good for you to go to your HR department and see like where you are with your retirement and enjoy your life doing what you want to do with your family, take time, and that was it. It wasn't like get involved and go and find an agency or organization to do something. It wasn't like go and keep yourself involved. But because I had already had a brother-in-law with that, and also I'm sort of self-driven. So I really don't need anyone to sort of tell me what to do because it was my problem. And so I decided after doing that to get involved, to start advocating and to start finding out more about this disease. Where are we? There's no cure. And so that's what I did. So the walks, the speaking, all of this, so I can be comfortable with it and learn information and pass it on to others.
Okay, perfect. I mean, you set me up for this one, Terrie. Great. So let's talk about some of those advocacy things that you do. I just heard you say something about walking and something else I heard. So let's talk about that. Let's share with us some of the things that you do in terms of advocacy.
In terms of advocacy, because in a state, it allows you to talk to the representatives, the senators, or also you look forward to going to the annual meeting, they call that the AIM, where the impact to actually go to Washington, D.C. But before you would get to that point, it was good to learn who represents your area where you live, who represents that, and to become to know the people, who is your House of Representative, who is your congressional person. So I learned that and I liked it. And so we would go and we would visit. We would start with the Capitol. You always would be there. And I sort of liked that. And we would tell our story. Then from there, I went to the AIM piece of it, which it takes us to Washington. Then I did the walk to raise funding and to bring awareness, and it gave me an opportunity to speak. And then from that, I became a speaker for other organizations like the Rita Hayworth Gala, and so many, the Reason of Hope, all of the themes type of things. And then also from that, then I did that for a while, and the Alzheimer's Association, I also became a national advocate, advisory advocate for the Alzheimer's Association, where we can speak nationally across the country, where you would have requests for people to listen to you and bring awareness to that. And from that, I came to the Dementia Action Alliance because we had a time limit as to how long we could do that for the Alzheimer's Association as being one of the advocacy advisors. So you had a little experience under your belt. And so I came to DAA because it was like a place where you could pick up where you left off and make recommendations as to what's going on, and then how they had discussions and how they had a speakers bureau. And so how you could be an advocate to tell other people what they can or cannot do, and the organization supporting you to stay busy, to get involved, and for us to have value, because it's only so much of a lifetime that we had to do it this way after being told that diagnosis. But once you're living that diagnosis, you want to tell that part too. You want to also tell the congressional people of what we need. You also have, by that time, you have enough confidence in yourself to be able to advocate and say exactly what laws and what we need in our communities, especially in communities of color.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, interesting work, Terrie. Tell me a little bit, what's your position on, as an advocate, what's your position on support groups? Do you find them beneficial? Do you find them, is that a methodology for advocacy types of work? Let's talk about that a second.
I think that the support groups, because DAA offered support groups as well as discussion groups, podcasts, and all of those things, and resources. I thought that that was great. And you recommend for other people to visit the website as well as to come and join the organization. So after doing that, let me go back. See that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to know your position as an advocate about a support group or discussion group. Do you believe in those? Do you think they're beneficial?
I think that support groups are great because that you meet people that's just like you, and you can share your problems. You can share or make recommendations as to how you can stay independent, how you can, with our partners. Just like you have the discussions for the care partners, you have the discussions for those that's living with the disease. So we make recommendations and share things that work for us or that's not working. We support one another when one of us has fallen down or they seem to need some support of some kind, or to be told that they can do this, that they're doing a great job, and that, don't take it personally, and focus on the word can. Don't look back. Don't ever look back at your can'ts. Stay focused on your can. And so it's easy for us to have like a motivational meeting. And you have to have everybody, because everyone doesn't talk as much as I do. But at the same time, we have all of those different personalities that everyone contributes something to that. So it's not like you go in there and you're like the teacher or the instructor. No, you just get together where we all can share what we're going through, what's new, what happened in your life, what are you doing? Are you advocating? Do you like advocating? Do you like speaking? Some people don't like speaking. So then you can very well find a talent that you have. Maybe you have a craft that you like to do. Of course, this organization allows that. Maybe you're good at music. Maybe you're good at singing. So it goes beyond the advocacy, because that's not for everyone, but I recommend everyone do it. But we all have different talents. And when you put it all together, as we live with this disease, none of us are the same. Some of us are more tough skinned, and some of us is more sensitive and still learning this disease. Me, because I had not only this disease, but I had another disease. So I sort of had to learn quick, so I could stay stable.
Gotcha. You have a wide range of tools in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask this very important question. What experience, if any, have you had with biases? Race, gender? Have you encountered any medical biases, Terrie?
Absolutely. Once, because my husband and I, we relocated out of one state into another state. The difference was geographically, things can be different. Okay, so I won't name the others. But for me, because I don't know if it has anything between what part of the world you live on. So I'm going to keep it abstract. But I can say that geographically, things can be different where you are. And because I may say something that I'm here in this state, yes, it's fair, I can do this is great insurance, this is great care, I have more avenues. And then I can go somewhere else because the most difficult part is you getting that diagnosis. You've left your job because you can no longer do it at the level it was, which I wish I could have taken something less than, at that time, but I wasn't as confident because I was a perfectionist. I wanted to do everything the way I did it. And I had to realize you're not a perfectionist anymore. You just need to stay, don't set your expectations so high that you become disappointed because you're a different person now. So when it came to biases, I was diagnosed with the early onset Alzheimer's in 2015. A year later, in 2016, I'm looking at breast cancer. So I wasn't in there no time to get another diagnosis. But here's the thing, because when you have dementia, sometimes the care or places you may go may not recognize you completely because you have dementia. So they sort of dismiss whatever you have to say. And that's when you have to come back into control, because my family like, Mom, you want me to go? If I need you, yes, but I still can talk with myself right now. And so when I would go there, and the doctor, I'll give this an example, not naming it, but I had breast cancer and he told me it was in the left breast. You have someone that could do the reconstruction surgery. Long story short, cancer runs in my family. He recommended a lobectomy. I'm like, why would you do that when I have a history of cancer? Why don't you just take it all off? Well, and then he said, well, that will be easy recovery for you. But no, to me, that's like, no, why you want me to do a lobectomy and it's bad? Why wouldn't you take it all off? See, that's when you have to speak out. So just because I have dementia, that don't mean that if I have something that's over 50% that's affected with a tumor, why would I want that? I would want all of it off. But if you don't have that logical part of it, because of my mother was, I'm kind of like my mom. That's how my mom was. But so from that, we finally got to the point, oh, I have to back up, because it takes you 2 years to get coverage, like for Medicare, for the disability of that. So the insurance I had, I couldn't afford the COBRA payment, and I taken the Affordable Care Act insurance. What happened with that was someone with dementia, I couldn't go to any hospital I wanted to go to. I had to go to wherever that insurance was recognized. And that has a lot to do with your care too, because you don't have a choice. You just go wherever you can get care. And when me not knowing, being in a different state, then when I handed my card, they said to me, we can't help you here. You're gonna have to go to one of these places that's on your card. So you need to go look, whatever this number is, when you get home, call it and make an appointment with them, because we can't help you. But because of my pride, that was before I got my diagnosis. I was just going for a mammogram, my annual mammogram. And we have went there. I thought I could go to this hospital with this insurance, but I was surprised that I couldn't. And then her response, well, we can't help you. You need to go somewhere else. And my day was set to have a mammogram. So I said, how much is that mammogram? And she told me it's going to be over whatever the price was. And I says, I want a 3D mammogram. She says, that's not the ones that you have to have this one. And we can't do it with your insurance. So I paid with my insurance card, because see, I had to come, I was a certain way, and I felt insulted of her saying, we can't help you and you won't get that today, you need to go. So I just was letting her know, I'll pay for it myself. I'm willing to pay for it myself. And what I learned is that sometimes when you pay things self-pay, sometimes you could get a discount because they understand, but you won't know unless you try it. You won't know unless you do it. And so I got through that. And the only bad part about it is that I couldn't continue my care at that hospital because I really liked it, but in reality, I didn't have the insurance to go there. So I had to accept to go where they recommended me, and that's where I had the doctor that was talking about the lipectomy. And then we wind up where he was willing to give me a mastectomy. But I got a second opinion. I went back to where I had started from, to the doctor there, and they ran all my tests over and found that I had breast cancer in both of my breasts. So if I had not gotten a second opinion, and that's what I'm talking about, why it's so important to advocate. It's so important that if someone tells you one thing, even if it's dementia, that you still take it a step further and understand what it is that you have. And when you have your dementia, you don't have to look at life as like, oh, I got this, what am I going to do? No, the clock is ticking. What you have to do is live your life. What you have to do is to realize that you don't have dementia where you have depleted all of your intelligence and your sense since that diagnosis. It's something that happens gradually. Like now, like my small frame of time or talking, I can get turned around a little bit more than what I did 7 years ago when I first got diagnosed. So it's a progressive disease, and that's why you have to try to do as much as you can, learn as much as you can, learn what you're entitled to, learn to speak up. If they say this, you have the right to say, well, why can't I have this? Or why can you explain that to me? But if you don't say anything, they're not going to do anymore. And sometimes they look at it because you have dementia that you don't know what's going on. But you do know what's going on because when you don't know what's going on, that's when your family is right there by your side and they're representing you. But as long as you're able to know understand what they're talking about, and it's your body, then you have to speak up. And it's very easy when I think that was really significant to have a doctor to do a lipectomy, have me all ready to do reconstruction surgery, and then to get a second opinion. Only if I would not have gotten that second opinion and followed that doctor's directions, I don't think I would be here today. Because it would have spread it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting, Terrie. So very interesting. So tell me this, because I suspect that you have a position on this. What do doctors need to know, Terrie, about the Black community? And I want to preface this by saying, I know that you are not representation of fully of the Black race. I get that. But generally speaking, Terrie, what do you think doctors need to know about the Black community as it relates to dementia?
I think that, first of all, a lot of times we're shy to talk about it or admit that we have that disease. A lot of times we stay maybe a year or two that we've had it before we even have gone to the doctor. So now that we're at the doctor's office, now it's out that you have dementia, you understand that. But it's also for you to build a relationship with your doctor, that they don't talk to you like you suddenly don't understand what they're saying. They don't have to slow down. With some of us, you may do have to slow down when you're talking to us, but just talk to us and look at us as being just regular people that just so happen to have a cognitive impairment of some kind where they are progressively losing their abilities. But at the same time, when you're talking to them, the doctor will know if you understand him or not, because you're going to let him know. You're going to say, I don't understand what you're saying. And then we have the right to ask, can you make that clear, or can you slow down so I can understand, or can I make notes and look this up so I can understand what you're talking about? And then the doctors, to get them engaged, is like, don't look at me as though I don't understand anything, because I do. Don't look at me as though I have a mental illness, because I do not. I have a problem as far as with my brain. It's a brain issue, a brain deficiency, a brain impairment that I don't know at what rate it's going, but I can say that don't talk to me as though I don't understand. When I get to the point where I don't know what you're talking about, then you will, my family will represent me, but please do not talk to my caretaker and not talk to me. I think that that's one, when I first got diagnosed, they would talk to my husband and just skip over me. I'm like, but I'm the patient. And so my husband was like, yeah, because he didn't want to talk to them anyway, but it's just a matter of being there for support. But I didn't need anyone to talk for me. And I think that as you continue on this journey, you'll learn for yourself, oh, I need to do these things because I'm beginning to forget more. So I need to write things down. I need to, things are changing in my life, and you have to start planning for that too. But for whatever it is, you have to stay anchored. You have to get information. If you know of a support group, if you know of an organization that is offering these things, if you need a sleep study, you need to tell them about that, about your sleep, that you're not sleeping. And then you also need to know that there's alternatives, that if you can't sleep, and because when I couldn't sleep for all of that time, I said, I need some medicine so I can go to sleep. But you know what my doctor told me? I'm not going to give you medicine, because that's just going to make things more difficult for you. We need to figure out why you're not sleeping. So then that's cognitive therapy, to find out what is it that's preventing us from going to sleep. What it is, the problem, is it depression, or, and I like that, because I didn't think nothing but drugs could put us to sleep.
Gotcha. So Terrie, according to research, 3 out of 5 people of color in America feel confident. They have lack of access, if you will, to competent doctors. 3 out of 5 people of color. Now that's staggering to me. Tell me, one thing that the doctor or doctors plural need to change, the one thing that they need to change. If you can recommend, if you had, this is a good question. If you had to speak to the doctors, Terrie, and they're right there before you, captive audience, what is the one thing that you would recommend?
The one thing I would recommend is to not challenge that patient has dementia. Don't say, you don't look like you have dementia. But if you haven't looked at my records, or if I don't look like, so what does dementia look like? That's number one. So if you're so far advanced in it, it's obvious. But I would think for every doctor, that whatever patient that you have, to treat them like you would treat anyone else. You don't have to slow down your speech. Some people will need that, so I can't say that they can't, because we all are different. But we have to go in there telling them, yes, I have dementia. Yes, I have early onset Alzheimer's, but I'm in my early stage. I follow you. I follow everything that you're talking about. I understand it. I mean, I remember it, but here's a pad or whatever it is. But you just have to take control while you still have control. And then when you need your family, your caretakers, and they're with you, then you bring them with you. But as long as you can tell the doctor, respect me the same as you will anyone else. Now, if I came in here with someone, I get that. But even if I'm here with my caretaker and they're just seeing what's going on so they can know the same time, is to let my caretaker know, let me talk for myself. And then if there's something that's wrong or I don't seem to know what I'm talking about, then that's when they can chime in.
Okay.
But if we don't, if the doctors look over the patient and look at the caretaker, that's wrong.
Gotcha. Okay. That's seasoned advice. I like that. Oh, it's such a delight to always chit chat with you. We're wrapping things up though, Terrie. So tell me this.
Mhm.
What do Black people need to know about dementia? And again, I know you're not holistically speaking for the entire Black race. I do get it, but I'm very interested in your perspective. What do Black people need to know about dementia?
I think that we need to admit, like, get up once you start getting these symptoms, to get it checked out. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to share the information, the resources where we can go and get tested, share it. We need to feel comfortable in ourselves that if we do have this disease, it's not like you're going to die tomorrow.
Right.
Like I said, I'm going into year number 7. But when I was first diagnosed, I thought I would be dead within 7. So don't take hearsay. Just find out. It's obvious we have the highest numbers of being diagnosed with this disease. So we got to get with the program. There are so many resources right now with tests being done, huddles, go to a support group, call somebody that you know that knows a little bit about that. And don't be afraid to stand up and go and find out if to take that test. And when you take that test, you pass that information to someone else, and you pass it to your family, and you pass it to your friends. And then when you have taken the test, you don't isolate yourself and be ashamed to tell anyone. You want to get busy. Once you get that diagnosis, if that is your diagnosis, start volunteering, start sharing whatever it is that makes you happy with someone else. Get excited about, okay, now it's time for me really to live. Don't look at it that you're handicapped, you got shot in the foot and you can't do anything. Now it's time for you to live.
Gotcha. Ooh. Is there anything that you would like to leave with us as a, not just an advocate, Terrie, you're a strong advocate. What is there anything you would like to leave with us as we begin to truly wrap it up?
Sure. I think that we should value ourselves, and when we're talking to someone and they try to devalue us, that we speak up and say that, you know, I'm whoever that I may be. I'm a person, you're a person, and feel good about yourself. And whenever you feel that you're down and you don't know what to say, a lot of times people think of a glass of wine. So rather than just like wine relaxes us and things, but wine, I'm not talking about the actual wine. I'm going to leave an acronym with you. Whenever you feel that way, that's when you have that moment to recharge yourself, because wine means whenever I need encouragement. So you call somebody or you get involved in something, even if you don't even know what it is, or you create something or get you a blog, or you start walking, or whatever it is that calms you, whatever it is that can encourage you, then that's what you do. It's to love you. And you can't love you if you don't take care of you.
Oh, speak. Terrie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was so excited to interview you. Do you know I failed to tell the audience who I was? I have been the interviewer, and again, my name is Deborah Tan. And for Calling All Voices, Terrie Montgomery, thank you for being on this podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Calling All Voices. If you're interested in learning more, please see the episode notes for this podcast. In the episode notes, you can find more information about Calling All Voices, and the work of the Dementia Action Alliance and the Global Council on Alzheimer's Disease. The creation of this podcast was sponsored by Otsuka America Pharmaceutical, Inc. The views expressed in this podcast reflect the views of the speakers, not the views of Otsuka America Pharmaceutical, Inc. If you liked what you heard today, please make sure to subscribe to the series, share a review, and let others know about it.